Okay, and I think that we are live on the after party. Hi,
Awesome.
everyone. My name is Anne, and I am the host here of the Art of Aging Well on the after party on behalf of Women S. And I am thrilled to have with me this evening Dr. Tasmin Bhatia, also known as Dr. Taz, and the co-founder of Women S, Sally Mueller. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining. And for those of you that are joining us here on the after party, please stay tuned until the very end because we are going to have a very special giveaway. So, Dr. Taz, what does it mean to be an integrative MD?
You know, it's so funny because I have been an integrative MD for now over 15 years, and I kind of still get asked that question. So it's really where we are just bringing together multiple systems of medicine, multiple ways of thinking, really embracing both Eastern and Western medicine and kind of expanding the medical model to not just be about numbers and physical health, but also to include things like your emotional health, your mental health, your community, your energetic health, and so much more.
There's a whole toolkit, and we know at Women S how important it is to have that whole toolkit, right, Sally? You hear this all the time from women.
Dr. Taz, that's what I really responded to with your book here.
Book.
You can see that I have my sticky notes.
Yes.
I'm just so impressed with how you took such a holistic approach and made it so easy for the reader. Even though I'm educated in menopause, obviously I'm not a doctor, but I just found it so informative and so easy to follow. So thank you for making this book happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think this book, like all my books, honestly, come from the exam room. That's really where they are from. You know, some people, it's interesting to observe other experts, like everyone has so much value, but some people are speaking from a very scientific standpoint, right? Like they're in the lab, they're looking at studies, they're looking at data, they're doing that type of thing. You know, other people have just their life story that they're sharing. But for me, it's been 15 years, I have a big team. So we've collectively seen about almost probably 40,000 patients. It's like the day in, the day out of meeting so many women, many different ages, many in sort of this perimenopause, menopause sort of time frame, and sort of hearing the same things over and over again. And then when you, again, take this toolbox, that you refer to, when you apply it to them, seeing kind of what works and what people are missing and what's being left out of the conversation. And really just the frustration is still universal. Unfortunately, the frustration that I experienced, when I was in my 20s is still there now, over almost 30 years later. And it's still that same frustration of not having someone to pull it together, not being able to connect the dots. You've got this person over here talking herbs and supplements, but then you have this other person over here saying, no, you can't do that, and so it's just this we have more information today than we had when I set out on my journey, but in some ways I kind of wonder, is it better or is it worse? Because now there's so much information, but the information is not unified, it's not coded, and so you continue to have to be the advocate for yourself. So my dream for the book was, you do exactly what you did with it. You would carry it around, you would mark it, you would come back to it. You might have a different shift in your life. You would come right back to it again. And it could be something reliable that you kept returning to over and over again, no matter how old you were, no matter what stage of hormone life you were in, and at least start to get some of those answers and be able to pull it together.
Yeah. Right. Because you say in the foreword, fine isn't good enough
anymore,
no. Right? When you're going to your physician and you're talking to them and you're, well, what I got was fine, or I feel fine, that's just not good enough. And we talk about menopause in the second half of life. This is an ending, right? We want answers because we are going to have a very rich, healthy second half of life.
Very much.
And it's great for us to have an easy roadmap like you have in your book that can help us go to our physicians and get answers.
Definitely. Sorry, I'm going to send a text to my daughter to make sure she doesn't burn dinner. Hold on, just sorry, real life. No, I'm sure you guys can relate.
Our multitaskers.
We understand.
Oh my God.
I used to be, I could do 7 things at once before. And now since I've hit menopause, the
There we
brain
go.
fog, which is so real, I can't do one thing well. Like I
Yeah.
used to be able to multitask all over the place, and now I have to focus on the one thing that I am doing. So we were talking about hormones. You were talking about hormones before. How is every aspect of our health connected to hormones?
You know, our hormones, and I was asked this earlier today, you know, our hormones really mediate almost every system in the body. So whether we start top down or we go outside in or however you want to approach it, our hormones are involved in some way. I mean, they're involved in our cognitive health. You just mentioned it, how we think, how we process information. We know, for example, that when women lose their hormones, they start to actually lose brain volume. And so the whole forgetfulness, dementia, you know, being out of it, all of those things are connected to hormones and hormone balance, and connected to that is mood, right? Like when your threshold for processing and taking in a lot of information or a lot of stressors goes down, then you are going to be more irritable. You are going to be more anxious. You're going to be prone to depression. All of these different things are going to happen. So the mood cognition stuff is a big one. Cardiometabolic health, right? Everything from heart health to blood sugar and insulin regulation to weight and that whole spectrum, which your cholesterol is doing, very much tied to hormones. I think if we think about the gut, when hormones go away, there's almost like the slowing and this delayed emptying of the gut that in turn leads to all kinds of issues and issues with inflammation, bone health, you know, our libido, our sleep, you know, there's so many, I mean, you name a system and a process and it's connected to hormones. And so, you know, the anti-aging and the longevity folks talk a lot about, you know, mitochondrial function and inflammation and getting antioxidants and all this other stuff. Well, a lot of that is mediated by hormones. So when the hormones go down, inflammation goes up, right? And when the hormones go away, you know, you start to have some nutrient depletion because the gut starts to slow down and you don't absorb the nutrients from your foods the way you once did. So when we talk about aging, we can't have a conversation around aging and aging well without talking about the importance of hormones and hormone balance.
Right. And I love the checklist in the book again. You know, if you're feeling this, you probably have low XYZ.
Right.
You get it's very easy to follow.
Good.
That checklist. Oh, I poured through it all weekend.
Oh, good.
But it's that checklist that I thought was so helpful. And
Definitely,
it
yeah.
does open your eyes to all the different roles the hormones are playing in your body, in your mind, in your
All of
outlook
it.
on life, all of it.
All
Well,
of
and
it.
I think it takes the anxiety out of it too, right? When you have that checklist and you have that thing to refer to, and when you're talking to your physician to say, okay, these are the things I'm experiencing now. This is my roadmap to get better health all the way around. Because like you said, this is a house of cards, and this
Right.
house of cards for me, right now my biggest thing, and anyone who knows me knows that I've been suffering from the hot flashes horrifically.
Mm,
It is a house of cards because I'm not sleeping at night. Now I'm anxious because I know I'm not sleeping at night. I'm not eating well because I'm not sleeping well. I'm not exercising because I'm not sleeping well.
so
I'm
true.
eating poorly and now I'm depressed. Like the whole thing is coming down.
Yeah.
And you've got to get it all back into balance. I love in the book the different categories that you have of the different time in your life. So you have the hustler, and I completely understood who she was, and
Yes.
the superstar,
Yeah.
and then you go into being a superwoman and then a commander. So would you define what each of those categories are? Most of us here at Women S and at the after party clearly are the superwoman and the commander. So
Yeah, definitely. And those are honestly the majority of our patient population. But I am incredible. Again, remember my journey, and for those who don't know my story, I have PCOS, long line of PCOS in the family, which we've learned since, right, along with endometriosis. But since my journey started in my 20s and my issues with hormones started then, and then I have a 16-year-old daughter as well. And just watching my patients, I started in pediatrics and all these other things. I'm like really passionate about understanding the arc of hormone health and really dispelling the myth that it's just an issue for women trying to get pregnant or for women in menopause. There's this whole arc that we really need to be dialing into and paying attention to. And so when I was thinking through how I was going to tell this story, I really wanted to do it in a kind of a fun way and have sort of something that every woman could relate to. So I started as young as, my daughter's age. She's 16. So I started with the teenagers, which I said, maybe we can define it around 13 or so when you first start to get regular periods or some sort of consistency with your period. I call them the rock stars because I felt like they were all over the place. Their food's all over the place, their sleep's all over the place, and their hormones are doing the exact same thing. So helping them to stabilize that and to understand, what they needed to do to stabilize that is something I feel very strongly about. And I write about it in the book. And in the practice, we even have a program called High School and College Prep, where before these kids go off to college, like, here's a formula for you. You need to understand who you are, because as you go into the next phase, which is the hustler phase, which we've all probably been there and done that, right? Where you are burning the candle at both ends. You are studying and partying and working and dating and all the things, right? It's all happening at one time. There's some hormone patterns that are starting there with cortisol and how cortisol is impacting changes in estrogen and progesterone levels, what your body is doing with that. And so as women go through those first two phases, that's often why they hit the third phase, which is sort of the superstar phase when they're ready to start families. And it's kind of like they start to, like, for the first time, really hit a break that they don't understand, and that's where fertility issues, PCOS, endometriosis, autoimmune diseases really first start to begin. And then those women go through that phase and hit perimenopause, which is now what I've been calling superwomen. And the reason I named that, my previous book was the Superwomen RX, really dedicated to that group of women, is because they're kind of at this peak, so to speak, where they have more responsibility than they've ever had before. So they usually have growing families, aging parents. From a career standpoint, they've taken on more than before. So if they've stayed in a career, they're usually in leadership positions with teams and responsibilities, or if they've started a business, those businesses are either getting off the ground or growing. So that stress we've all felt, right? I've had that stress for sure. And the problem with this phase is this is where if women are not taking good care of themselves, they literally crash their hormones to the point, and I love Chinese medicine for this because and even Ayurvedic medicine, they describe aging as a spectrum, almost like a highway. And you can speed down that highway, or you can go very strategically and methodically and slowly and stop at the stop signs and observe the universe around you. And so for women in the superwoman phase, if they're so checked out, and they're not nurturing themselves, which is really our first responsibility, they find they're speeding down that aging pathway. And so the hormone depletion begins quickly. And so these are the women that you've heard about that start to go into more menopause, start to go into menopause like in their early 40s versus their 50s. They are really crashing out their progesterone levels. Now their estrogen levels are all over the place. So they start to gain weight, their blood sugar's off, cortisol's off, their thyroid takes a hit. So they've got all these different hormone shifts happening, either because of the expression of their genetics or because of the lifestyle issues from the previous few decades, and at a time when they have a lot on their plate. And so this is the stress of this. And I can't harp on this enough. I feel like the cumulative stress of this, of like your chemistry shifting, your life being very, very burdened, whether it's good burden or bad burden, but very full and with a lot going on, really takes a toll. And this is where it shows up sometimes in relationships. So this is where a lot of women and men, go through a midlife crisis. This is where we see a lot of divorce taking place. It will sometimes show up as a diagnosis. This is where, the dreaded C word might show up, or an autoimmune disease may fully declare itself, even though it's been simmering kind of under the surface in the past. So this is a really critical phase for women. So women checking their hormones, understanding what's going on, mapping together these holistic ideas of, your gut health, your nutrition, your environment, taking time out to de-stress are really, really critical. Though usually what happens is people power through, is the phrase I've heard every woman use. Like, I'm just gonna like, I have to be strong. I'm just gonna power through and move through these phases. And then they move into menopause. And menopause, which should be, according to Eastern systems of medicine, almost like a coming of age or a second coming of age or a graduation, becomes kind of like you're cast aside or hellacious, because to your point, you're not feeling good, you're not sleeping, you're gaining weight, you don't look the same. And so a lot of women start to retreat, right? They don't want to face, that version of themselves. So they'll start to retreat. And instead of rising up and being the commander or the woman that was so revered within their communities and families and really looked up to, now you're sort of taking a back seat when that's not really what the journey of womanhood is about. Like in older cultures, Eastern cultures, you literally, a woman was rising in this matriarchal figure, although there are, lots of jokes about it and lots of stories about how the matriarch, ruins families, but this matriarchal figure, was really the commander in chief, of a family or a community or even, a city or a culture. So, I'd like us to get back to that because I think the beauty of today is that we are living longer. We're not, hopefully not dying in childbirth the way we used to. We're living for a much longer period of time, but living longer, we want to be vital, right? We don't want to be on 20 different medications with 20 side effects and 5 different procedures happening all the time. We want to live, in this new version of us, but one that's fully ours, like we're truly in our authenticity. And I think that's a journey that women should be striving, like we should be teaching our teenagers that this is a journey you're going on. And these are the shifts and changes that are going to happen on the way. But each shift and change is a move up. It's not a move back or down. It's actually a move up. And it's only a move up if you are safeguarding your health. And health is not just physical, it's mental, it's spiritual, it's energetic, it's emotional. If you're safeguarding all of that, you're going to get to where you have just this incredible journey in your 50 plus years. And so that's really what I would love for women to be talking about.
And I love that women are talking about it now, right, Sally? Like
Yes,
we see
absolutely.
Even in the 3 years since Womeness has launched, the conversation has changed seismically.
Yeah,
Sally,
I agree.
you are always doing all of these appearances, talking about it. Women want to talk about it and they want to get educated and they want to celebrate it.
Yeah. I mean, we have this term, Dr. Taz, of menopositivity.
I like that.
Very much in sync with your philosophy and just reading the book, I felt like your voice as also an author and expert was very similar to our voice as a brand. And we just, I think we need to help women. We're all helping women, but we need to really inspire women and give them, like you said, the toolbox.
Yes, for
to
sure.
figure this out.
And a sense of community.
Right.
Because
Definitely.
you're not alone and you're not crazy and you're having all these symptoms. And one of the things that you talk about in the book are the common symptoms of hormone imbalance. 10 years ago, my night sweats, anything that was happening, the weight gain that I was getting, nobody was talking about it or telling me, yes, that's a common symptom of imbalance. What are the common symptoms you see?
I think weight is a big one, actually. It's the one that catches everyone's attention the fastest.
Right,
Probably what we should say. I think other things are happening, but we tend to ignore them as not important. But like that belly weight in particular, right? That's the one that really shows up sort of late 30s, 40s, and catches everybody by surprise, including myself. I've never gained at the bottom, never gained through the midsection. So that was a new one, and that's a recurring theme for sure. I think the issues with sleep and mood are big ones, right? Like, not being able to sleep through the night, waking up at first between like that 2 to 4 a.m. and then like having that popcorn sleep where you're just sort of like falling asleep, waking up, falling asleep, waking up. That really is a very big one too. I think the mood and the libido probably follow, like women actually are experiencing anxiety, crying at a drop of a hat, flying off the handle really quickly. That's kind of takes toll on the relationships as well, because people are like, what's happening here? That's a big one that's directly rooted in the drop in progesterone and even estrogen and what's that doing overall to the body. And libido, I think that one's really sad. I think, you see these women who were in relationships where, that was strong and vibrant, and all of a sudden it's like lights out, and it can change the dynamics of a relationship for sure. So I think that is a significant one that we probably don't maybe talk enough about. So those are some of the big ones that I see. And of course, from a laboratory standpoint, this is also where women are like, wait, I've never had an issue with cholesterol. What just happened here? So cholesterol markers going up, things like blood sugar, insulin markers going up, like all of that is new. It's like, these are not my issues. This is not my family history even. Why do I have these numbers now? So I'll see that in the lab work, which will be surprising. We'll see inflammation markers go up as well. So those are some of the other things that we'll see just from a lab standpoint. But I mean, usually it's I'm gaining weight, I'm super tired, I'm not sleeping. I don't, it's always I don't feel like myself, or I don't know whose body this is, or, it's just very like off-centering for women. It's just like all of a sudden they feel like something caught them by surprise. And they're like, what just happened? I put my head down, I worked really hard, and what just happened? This is the payoff, So I know I've been in that boat with everybody else. So I completely understand how that feels.
Yeah.
So when you feel like something is off and you're recognizing, okay, this could be hormonal imbalance, I could be going into menopause. What are the blood tests that women should be asking for at these different stages? Certainly the superwoman.
Yeah, and I think the lab panel is congruent across all the different shifts, honestly. Maybe a little bit more detailed as we move along, but I think when you're not feeling right, you should be looking at and this is in the book too, but you should be looking at estrogen, circulating estradiol. You should be looking at circulating progesterone and testosterone, looking at thyroid, looking at cortisol and insulin and blood sugar, and trying to understand what that web is doing and how it's impacting how you feel. I actually also like to look at estrone because it tells us how you're storing hormones. So for a lot of women, there's, this is where it gets missed in the exam room. A lot of times your circulating estrogen is low, but your estrone is high. You're storing a lot of estrogen. So someone then goes, oh, you're having hot flashes. Let's give you a patch or a pill or whatever else. Well, if they don't do something to help you metabolize that estrogen, you're going to continue to drive that estrone up, and that's going to give you more symptoms. So I think you've got to understand the full picture, right? Really where it is. Now, there's another menopausal pattern that's actually in our family where, because, we have PCOS, as women go into menopause, their menopause converts into a high androgen pattern. So there's an estrogen storage pattern of menopause, there's a insulin pattern of menopause, and then there's a high androgen pattern, and that's very much our family. And for those people, it's the hair loss, right? They start losing hair, they're having acne. Again, they're getting a lot of weight gain right through the middle because insulin and androgens are so connected up together. So I think checking all of these things so that we can nail, and that's what I'm telling patients constantly, like, I can treat every lab number. I need the whole thing though, to put the pieces together and really nail the main idea and understand, like, okay, this is the main idea. This is where we have to focus, and everything else underneath it will behave.
And in your book, you talk about those normal ranges, right?
Yes. Yeah. We have them all listed out.
Yeah. Really, really helpful.
That is so
I
helpful.
actually have taken, blood tests. So I want to pull that out and even compare
it. Yeah.
Your book now. But how often should we be getting these tests? I mean, it's actually, because there is so much fluctuation.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you're not in a rapidly shifting phase of your life, you need to be doing it at least once a year. Just where are you? What's happening? You need to know these numbers. Right. If you are in a transition, right, or having a lot of symptoms, well, it may take a few goes to really get you stable again. So sometimes you're checking them every 3 months, every 4 months, to see how every intervention played out and if it really is on the right track. So, I would say quarterly for women who are actively shifting, yearly for all women, to really understand where you stand and what we need to do about it.
Seems like a big opportunity. I don't think most women are doing this.
No, and it's not hard. That's the other thing. Again, I think anything like testing, it feels like, oh my God, I got to go do this, I got to do that. There are so many tests now. There are at-home tests you can do and track yourself. You don't even have to go to the doctor if you don't want to. Just track yourself, And I love, the other thing is kind of funny to me. It's not funny, but people will debate the academic relevance of a particular test, right? Let's do the ZRT. Let's do the Dutch test. Let's do LabCorp. Let's do Quest. Bottom line, just pick something and be consistent, because what you're looking for are not absolute values. You're looking for trends, right? If you are trending test to test and all of a sudden the trend goes in a different direction, well, that's your ability to communicate, first of all, with yourself and then also with your provider, that look, I'm feeling X, Y, and Z. Normally my levels are here. And as soon as, you know, these labs are saying my levels are now here, and that correlates with this weird way I'm feeling, then it's faster to a point of action, right? But what I find a lot of women doing is just getting flustered by all the tests that are out there, not sure which one to do. Or then here's the worst, like you actually are like, okay, she said to go get tested. I'm going to go get tested. You show up to your doctor and the doctor's like, oh, we don't need to check hormones. There's no value in that. There's no information in that. And I mean, that is where it's like, oh
I know.
no, like
Or
Time to
those
find a
tests
new
don't
doctor.
work. Those tests don't work.
those
I've heard
tests don't work. Yeah, that's
Right.
the other one.
they're
I
very
like,
inaccurate.
I really, really want just, you know, both on the doctor end and both on the patient consumer end, just stop the noise. You know, it's just a lot of noise. We're not in a game. If we can all get out of a game of I'm right and you're wrong,
Yeah.
we're going to all win, you know, at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, anything you do to find out or dig into your own health, there's some value in that, you know. And so even patients bring me tests from all over the place, right? And I'll take them and I'll look at them and I'm like, okay, I might need to reconfirm X, Y, and Z, but this is at least helping me get to your pattern faster
Right.
than if you hadn't brought these at all in the first place. So, I mean, we just need to adopt that mentality and find practitioners to work with who are in alignment with that philosophy for sure.
Yeah, and my doctor, he gives me my blood tests year over year. He doesn't explain to me. I get them. I get a copy of the test.
Yeah.
He literally left me a message, and it was on my birthday, and he said, okay, well, I'm just calling to let you know you're in menopause, and I'll see you next year. And I was like, okay,
Thanks.
and happy birthday to me. But I knew enough to know, okay, I'm not in menopause, because
Right.
I had my last period in April. April
Right.
Fool's Day, funny enough, will be my 1 year anniversary. So I'm not officially in menopause until April
Yeah.
of
1 year. Right.
2024. So you're a little premature in that. And you literally explained nothing else. I printed the year before and this year's and was going through each level and then Googling it to see,
Oh my
okay,
gosh.
what does
Now
this
you
mean?
have her book. You
And
can-
now we have but for people like me who want to know everything and want to know year over year and what am I supposed to be looking for, it is great to have this. I did get a couple questions from our community.
Okay.
One asked, how does a plant-based diet affect hormones? Should women eat or avoid soy?
Ooh, good questions. Okay. Plant-based diet is great as long as it's truly being done with plants, meaning we're doing it with vegetables and fruits and whole food. But when we switch over and we follow a plant-based diet with a lot of processed foods or some of the mimicking foods, right? Like the Beyond Meats and some of those type of things, now you're just increasing your intake of processed food. And that actually has a liver load that's not so great for hormones.
Right.
So plant-based, where you're getting fiber and antioxidants and real food, whole food, fantastic. The only trap you have to watch for there is, are you getting enough protein to stabilize your blood sugar and your insulin? Plant-based, where it's a lot of I mean, you can be plant-based and eat pizza and drink beer technically, right? But plant-based, where you're not getting real healthy food or whole food, or you're doing a lot of substitution foods or fake meats or things like that, not great for the hormones. Fermented soy, and now we're talking about things like tempeh or those type of things. Fermented soy, non-processed soy, good for hormones, right? They're phytoestrogens, they can often help. But again, processed soy, like a soy powder, or again, the fake meats or things like that, not so great for hormones. So that's how you differentiate between the two. And even with soy, even with fermented soy, like again, food is a lot about balance, because every food has a macronutrient and a micronutrient profile, and too much of anything is never great. I think we always think good or bad, but a lot of times this is the sweet spot or somewhere in the middle. So, you know, having 3 to 4 servings of fermented soy, you know, real soy weekly is a good thing. but having it like 4 and 5 times a day, not so great.
The next question I had is, do you think cold water immersion affects hormones? And if so, how?
So the question is probably about cold plunge, which is a big trend right now. And
Yeah.
I still can't bring myself to do it because I'm like, I want warmth. I have a heater going right now as we speak.
No,
But
it's
anyhow,
not.
so I can't get myself to do that. But cold plunging and cold immersion increases production of brown fat. And brown fat actually makes us metabolically more active. So I think if we're doing it, you could do it in short bursts. Now, my concern is doing it for extended periods of time can impact probably thyroid and adrenal health. There's probably a crossover point where it becomes more stressful than helpful. But again, if you're doing 15 minutes once or twice a week, that's fine. I do still think it's a little overrated, but if people want to try that, they can go for it.
I don't know that I could do that. I mean, I
I-
did find myself running out into
Cold
the
all the
snow
time to be able to do it.
recently, so yeah.
The other thing I did love in your book too was the stash and trash
Yeah.
section where you
Yeah.
talk about the foods to just, you got to get rid of these in your pantry.
Yep.
And then which ones to really.
Yeah, because if they're there, you're going to eat it, right? I mean, like my mom and I had this
No, it
running
was
joke.
a
Like,
really great section of the book. And
yeah, like we love potato chips, but if they're in the house,
right,
we're
you're
gonna
going to
eat
eat them.
potato chips. So my mom hides hers in the garage, and we just don't buy them. But and that seems to work, But they just don't need to be where they're so accessible.
Right. And you have so many good recipes too in the back.
Yeah, I love to cook, so some of those are straight out of my kitchen, and
Yeah, they're really,
you
really
know,
good.
just things that we can do quickly, right? Because I'm not going to be a gourmet cook, but things we can do fast and quickly and all that good stuff.
Oh, we
Awesome.
love the book. We love having a roadmap. We love checklists at Womeness and certainly having all the recipes too, like Sally said. It's great.
Our
Awesome.
community loves recipes.
We can do a whole nother show just on the recipes.
Oh yeah.
But we are going to have we would love for the people watching to put in the comments, how is it that you are aging well? What does aging well mean to you? And one lucky winner will get the book, as
Yay.
well as from Women-S, our menopause supplement kit, which includes Let Me Sleep, which is a great nighttime supplement to help you sleep through the night. It has this great ingredient that keeps you asleep when you wake up in the middle of the night, right? It has that time released capsule. You were talking about women who wake up in the middle of the night. We do at 3, 4 in the morning. It helps keep you asleep. It also has our menopause, which helps with menopausal symptoms like the hot flashes. I'm a huge fan right now. And Active Glow, which is our supplement for hair, nails, and skin. So one person will win all of that.
Amazing.
When they put their comments below. We cannot thank you enough for this book, as well as thank you for joining us here on the after party and on our show, The Art of Aging Well. This has been such a fun conversation.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. I think it's so important for all of us to be dialed into this for sure. And thank you for what you guys do. What a great opportunity for women to have a community to turn to. I think that's so important.
Thank you, Dr. Taz. So inspiring to hear you talk and to obviously read your book. And I only wish I lived near you so that I could be your patient.
We have lots of virtual patients. We actually run a whole virtual practice. Where are you guys, by the way?
I'm in Minneapolis and Anne is in New Jersey.
Okay, gotcha. And we are growing and scaling the practices as well. So we may not be too long, but working on all of that.
No, for our community as well. So
yeah, because women are looking for help and looking for answers. So
well, for now, virtual is an option, or come on down to Atlanta. We have a couple of great locations there and a big team. So happy to help however we can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we'll put all of your information in the chat below.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.